Hello and greetings, everyone. I'm Pastor Edwin Strickland, and I serve as the Senior Pastor of Fellowship of Champions Church International, a worldwide ministry helping people to learn to live out their God-given dreams by walking in love and living by faith. And I get to be your host and your guide for this exciting journey that we're about to take that we call Ed Talk with Pastor Strick. Hello, and welcome to another edition of Ed Talk with Pastor Strick. I am your host, Pastor Strick, and as you know, every time we come together here on Ed Talk, we come together to blend the realms of knowledge, instruction, and faith with real-world solutions. Listen, whether you are on a quest seeking to expand your knowledge base, maybe you're just looking to uplift your spirit, or maybe you're searching to find some common ground between the practical and the spiritual, I need you to know that you are in the right place. Every time we gather, we come together to forge new connections, to bridge gaps, to spark thought, to ignite curiosity, and to nurture our souls, our minds, our wills, our emotions, our imagination, and our intellect, so that we can be the best version of ourselves that we can possibly be. So welcome to episode number 9 of season 3 of Ed Talk with Pastor Strick. Listen, you guys know what I ask you to do every time we come together. I ask you to help me out with a little social media outreach. What does that mean? That means I'd love for you to love or like this broadcast. I would also like you to tag your friends, your family, co-workers, anybody who you think might benefit from this conversation today. And I will go ahead and tell you in advance that we will be talking about mastering change. And I'm telling you that if you don't learn to move with the times, if you don't learn to adapt and be adaptable, if you don't learn how to be flexible, then life is going to absolutely pass you by. And you may find yourself being obsolete in some areas, or just being overall frustrated because the way you used to get things done just doesn't work anymore. So go ahead and tag your friends, tag your family members, let them know Ed Talk is live, and let them know that we are going to be talking about mastering change, and they need to get over here and they need to hear this. Also, do me a favor, let me know whether you are watching this podcast or listening to this podcast live, or if you're catching me on the replay. If you're watching this podcast via one of our streaming channels, then you will see a small red box in the upper left-hand corner of your screen. It will let you know that you are absolutely watching us live. But if you don't see that small red box, then you are catching us on the replay. And while that is okay, it is just as informational and hopefully just as impactful as those of us who caught it live. Also, let me know where you're watching from. I see Raleigh, North Carolina. I saw Austin, Texas. I saw Biloxi, Mississippi, and I saw Chattanooga, Tennessee. So let me know where you are watching from. You can hashtag live and then put your city there, or hashtag replay and put your city. When I go back and look at the analytics, I'll get to see where you are from. Also, if you don't mind, let me know. Are you watching me on Facebook today? Or are you watching me via YouTube? A lot of my subscribers tend to use YouTube, which I enjoy and have started enjoying it more and more, because I can listen to podcasts while I'm actually doing some work and kind of multitask there. So I see many of you are doing that as well. Speaking of which, there are multiple ways in which you can interact with Ed Talk. You can go to YouTube, as we mentioned, by simply going to www.pastorstrick.com. And that will put you directly to my YouTube channel. And have I told you, if you haven't subscribed, you should. If you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, then I need you to run on over there and do that, and then come back. But I need you to run over there to www.pastorstrick.com. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and then you will be part of the Ed Talk community. If you prefer, visiting your various podcast platforms. I certainly understand that. We are on a multitude of them. To find the ones that we are on and to find us, simply go to www.facebook.com/Ed Talk with Pastor Strick, all one word. Ed Talk with Pastor Strick, just as you see it written on your screen. It will take you to a landing page and it will allow you to simply choose the podcast platform that you are used to listening to. All right. And you can do that. You can watch me on Facebook the same way. And that information is there on your screen. Now, what I want to say is this will be the end of season 3. My month of July is packed full of activities and responsibilities. And so is my August. And so Ed Talk will be gone for a couple of weeks and we will come back after Labor Day. We'll come back after Labor Day. And for those of you to say, oh no, Ed Talk is going to be gone for too long. Listen, all you have to do is go to my Facebook page. All you have to do is go to the YouTube page. All you have to do is go to the platform landing page, and you can go back and listen to any of the teachings from season 1, from season 2, from season 3, any place. Just go there, look at the title and decide if that's going to be a title you think you're interested in and hit the play button. Okay. All right. So listen, let's get into today's teaching. Man, we're talking about managing change. Managing change is so vitally important, especially in this fast-paced world that we live in. And so today we're going to be embarking on what I consider to be a transformational journey about how to master being okay with change. Because if you're not okay with change, then you're really going to struggle at realizing your goals, realizing your dreams, and reaching any resolutions you've set for yourself. Today is July the 2nd. We are literally halfway through the year. And most people who made New Year's resolutions sadly have let those resolutions go. They haven't stuck to the change that they say they were going to stick to. And I want to talk a little bit about why that is and what we can do to kind of do a reset to make sure that we finish 2024 as strong as we had hoped we would start it. Did you know that behavioral research indicates that it takes about 90 days to prepare for change, just to get ready to have significant change? Behavioral research says that it takes us about 90 days to really get ready to embrace that change. In order for us to build a new behavior, in order for us to become competent in the face of what is called high-risk triggers, and how to move past the likelihood of relapse. Now, you guys know the term relapse because we use it when we talk about people who are addicted to various substances, whether it's alcohol, whether it's drugs, whether it's food, whether it's sex. Whatever people are addicted to, when they are trying to overcome that addiction, they have to have parameters and things in place, or they will relapse, meaning they will go back to those old behaviors. And many people tend to go back to their old behaviors, even though they really don't like the old behavior. And so we're going to talk a little bit about why that is, what we can do to strengthen our resolve so that we don't go back to bad behavior. We see it all the time with people who lose weight. My wife and I were talking the other day. This is probably the third or fourth time in my life since I was in my early 40s that I've ballooned in my weight and lost weight and ballooned in my weight and lost weight. And this is probably the first time that I've went through an entire cycle, a whole fall, a whole winter, a whole spring, and a whole summer, and been able to maintain where my desired weight was. But that didn't happen until there were some things that were changed in my life besides just the want to. Because believe it or not, it takes more than just the want to change. In fact, somebody ought to put that in the comment section. Say, I need more than just the want to. because lots of people want to. Crackheads want to not be crackheads, right? People who are addicted to drugs and all kind of wrong behavior. They don't want to be that way, but it takes more than just wanting to actually change. In addition to that, there's some brain research out there that suggests that it takes a few months of actually practicing a new behavior before you create the permanent change. Most people are so impatient with themselves. They're so impatient with change that they desire to change. They want the results of change, but they're not willing to stick to what is necessary long enough in order for that change to come to fruition. And that becomes the rub. That becomes the thing that causes people to give in, to cave in, to quit, or to do what we just said earlier, to relapse, right, into those bad behaviors. Because they want the change, they know they need the change, they can even envision what that change would look like, but they don't necessarily have the skills, and they don't have the environment, and they don't have the structure set up so that they can actually do the new behavior long enough so that the new behavior replaces the old behavior, so that the new norm is the new thing and not the old thing. In fact, more than 75% of people maintain a goal for a week, but then they gradually slip back into their old behavior. So think about that. You got 100 people, and 100 people all want to do a new thing. 75% of those people actually make it the first week. But as each week goes by, the number of people who stick with it goes down lower and lower and lower. Research shows us, or tells us, that almost all the people who are actually able to maintain this new behavior for at least 90 days, for 3 months, make the change a permanent change. So imagine this, 100 people, and they all want to stop smoking. 75% of those people may actually make it through the first week. But then as those weeks go by, less and less people make it through. Research says that those who actually make it through for at least 90 days, for at least 3 months, they actually end up making that change permanently. And the research says that the probability of those individuals having a relapse becomes less than 10%. Less than 10%. So you give yourself a 90% chance of success by just sticking to the thing that you are committed to have in your life, if you're willing to put the parameters in place to allow you to stick to it. And so that's true about stopping smoking, whether you want to lose weight, when you want to get a new job, whether you want to fix your relationship, whether you want to learn a new skill, whether you want to make more money, you want to start a business, whatever it is, you're going to have some stick-to-itness. In fact, go ahead and put that in the comment section. Say, I have stick-to-itness. I have some stick-to-itness. I don't give up. I don't cave in. I don't quit. I understand that there may be some failure along the way, but I don't really see it as failure. I see it more as learning. And the more I learn, the better I become to be able to stick to this thing so that I can get to where I want to get, to where I want to be. All right. In reality, we actually, if you think about it, we have a love-hate relationship with the idea of change. We do. We have a love-hate relationship with the idea of changing our behavior. Why? Because change, on one hand, is desired, but on the other hand, it's dreaded. I have a desire to lose the weight, but I dread the fact I won't get to eat all the stuff that I'm going to have. Yes, Danielle, I love how you spell that too. Stick-to-itiveness. That's what we got to have. We got to have some stick-to-itiveness, all right? Listen, in reality, though, We struggle sometimes, if we're honest, because we desire a thing, but in order to get the thing we desire, we have to do some undesired things. What do I mean? I want to lose 30 pounds. That means I got to stop eating the ding dongs and the cupcakes, right? But I really like eating the ding dongs and cupcakes. But they're counterintuitive. They're counterintuitive to me being able to get to where I want to be. Change is both vilified on one hand and venerated on the other. Our aim is to get you, though, to the place in your life where you can reach your goal and you don't see the thing that's required to get there as dread or as a villain or as something that's hard or something that's dreadful. Why? Because if you can create the parameters for mastering change, anytime you want to get to a new destination, the road becomes a lot easier. Now, before we dive into the specifics of that in our Ed Talk today, let's take a moment to try to understand why mastering the art of embracing change is so critical. Because it is. Embracing change is critical. I'm gonna say it two more times. Embracing change is critical. Okay? Embracing change is critical. Why? Because in this fast-paced, ever-evolving world that we live in, change is actually the only constant we can count on, besides Jesus Christ. God's the same yesterday, today, forevermore. But in this world that we live in our environment that we exist in, the only thing that is constant is the fact that there's going to be change. In fact, whether it's a technological advancement, whether it's a shift in our personal lives, whether it's something that's happening in the world, some global event, we are continually faced with new challenges and new opportunities. The question becomes is how do we respond to these changes? How do we respond to these changes that we know can significantly impact our personal and professional success? Winston Churchill once made this quote, and I'm going to use it today. He says that to improve is to change. To be perfect is to change often. And I love that quote. To improve, if we want to get better, we're going to have to change. I don't care how good you are at your job today. I don't care how great of an athlete you may be in a particular sport. I don't care how wonderful of an investor you may be. I don't care how great of a father you are, how beautiful of a mother you are. I don't care what kind of brother or sister you are, what kind of friend you are. If you want to get better at that particular thing, it's going to require change. Winston Churchill says that to improve is to change. But if we want to be perfect, and I don't even mean perfect like without mistake, but if we want to be excellent, if we want to be at the top, if we want to be the guru, the expert in whatever it is we endeavor to do, even if it's just mastering our own emotions, mastering our own behavior, then we, in order to be perfect in that area, we have to be willing to change and change often. His statement actually underscores to me the importance of adaptability. In order to grow and to thrive, we must be willing to evolve. We must be willing to evolve. Why? Because embracing change allows us to harness new possibilities, to overcome obstacles, and to achieve our goals. John F. Kennedy highlighted that when he stated that change is the law of life. Change is the law of life. And he said, those who look only to the past or even to the present are certain to miss out on the future. And that is true. We know that the world we live in now, I was talking to someone the other day, and we were talking about something that happened in 1995 or something like that. And we were saying in 1995, we never imagined that you would be able to have a phone in your hand that could take pictures and you could send pictures and do FaceTime and do all those things. We saw all that stuff on the Jetsons and just thought that that was make-believe, right? But change happens. Change happens. Now we're in a place where we're seeing more and more self-driving autonomous cars. Change is happening. Change is happening, and change is the law of life. And if you don't learn how to master change, then you become subjugated under that law rather than being able to use that law in its most effective way. The other problem with people who don't master change or don't embrace change is they become stagnant. Stagnation can and oftentimes does lead to missed opportunities. You ought to put that in the comment section, and just say that. Stagnation leads to missed opportunities. If you are stagnant, if you are slow to adopt new things, if you are always stuck in the past, if you have a fixed mindset, you are going to miss out on opportunities that could have been opportunities in your favor rather than missed opportunities that keep you behind everybody else. Stagnation leads to missed opportunities. By looking forward, by learning to look forward, by learning to master change and adapting to change as it comes and being ready for it before it hits us, we actually open up ourselves to innovation and to progress. One of the quotes that I love, my wife says it all the time. She says, you have to be committed to your outcome, but you must be flexible in your approach. If you are not flexible in your approach, the way you start off in a direction going to achieve a particular goal, maybe new technology came out between the time you started and the time you reached there. It's like people who won't embrace AI. People who don't embrace AI are going to be left behind. You can say how you feel about AI and how it's going to go sentinel and it's going to take over and get rid of humanity. Hear what I'm telling you. Those who refuse to embrace the capability of artificial intelligence will be left behind. Now, I tell people this all the time. People say, well, AI is going to replace all of our jobs. No, AI is going to replace some current jobs in the state that they exist. But the opportunity for AI is going to also open up new jobs and new opportunities. So we have to be thinking about that in terms of, hey, maybe I have these skills and talent right now. If AI probably will come and replace this job, what opportunity is AI going to allow me to be doing something else? You have to be open to change, right? And then Benjamin Franklin made this point. He says, when you are finished changing, you are finished. Think about that. When you make the decision that you're no longer going to change. I am the way I am. I ain't changing. I ain't doing nothing different. We see churches. This happen in churches all the time. Churches say, we're not doing that social media stuff. We ain't doing X, Y, and Z. We're not doing this or that. Or you see stores that used to exist like Blockbuster and Hastings. And they said, oh, we're not embracing no streaming stuff. We're not doing any of that. And you look around now and where are they? They're finished. They're finished. Because when you finish changing, you are finished. And this should be a constant reminder to all of us, and it should serve as a call that we should continuously be seeking self-improvement, personal development, and growth. Why? Because our journey of personal development is never truly complete. As long as you're breathing, you ought to be learning. You ought to commit to being a lifelong learner, that no matter whether you're in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, 70, 80, 90, whether you're 100 years old, okay, you should always be learning. You should always be learning and embracing change because it is a vital part of life's journey. So understanding why change is essential now helps us to prepare mentally and emotionally for what we're going to talk about today. Because as we explore today's teaching, we're going to discover some very practical, because you guys know I love the practical. It talks always all about the practical. We're going to discover some very practical strategies to help us navigate the complexities of change so that we can manage it effectively. Okay? Now, I don't have my notes all typed out today like I usually do. So those of you who like to scribe, you can scribe in the comment section, right? I'm going to give you some steps. I'll call them out. And for those of you who like to scribe, you can scribe and put them in the comment section. But today there's a couple of steps we're going to talk about. Number one, we're going to talk about what it means to prepare. So number one is to prepare. After we talk about preparation, because remember, brain research tells us that it takes about 90 days to actually prepare for change. Then we're going to talk about the plan. Okay. So we're going to talk about being prepared. We talk about preparation or preparing. Then we're going to talk about the plan. Okay. Because you need a plan. If you don't have a plan, then a goal just turns into a dream. All right. So we need to prepare. We need a plan. And then we're going to talk about what it means to take action. Okay. Take action. Once I've prepared for change, once I've planned for the change, now I got to pull the trigger. Okay. And I know that's probably a bad term sometimes, but we got to pull the trigger on it. All right. We got to step up and take action. And then after we take action, then we have to maintain the progress. You need systematic things in place to help you maintain your progress. Okay. When I had reached my heaviest weight, I had got to 267 pounds. And I had a goal to get to at least 180 by March the 15th. Okay. I started back in September, the end of August, September of 2023. I was at my heaviest. And I knew that I wanted to be 180 pounds before we went to spring break. I knew that there was going to be some things I was going to have to do in order to reach that weight goal that realistically I wouldn't keep doing all the time after I met that goal, right? So I was doing this thing called where I was doing deficit eating, which means if I consumed 1,100 calories or 1,200 calories that day, I had to burn 1,500 to 1,800 calories. Okay. I cut out bread. I cut out sugar. I had no sodas during that time. I had this thing that said, basically, if it was white, it wasn't right. That means I didn't eat rice. I didn't eat potatoes. I didn't eat pasta. I didn't eat, those kind of things. I had all these restrictive things because I was trying to lose the weight. But I also understood that after I had reached my goal, which I'm proud to say that I did, I was 179 when we went on spring break. After I reached my goal, I knew that I had to have something in place in order to help me maintain where I was. Because if I didn't, I would do what? I'd relapse. I'd go back to the pints of ice cream and Frosted Flakes. I'd go back to the late night chip eating. I'd go back to the Dr. Peppers. I'd go back to all the Little Debbie's cakes and those kind of things, right? And so it was important to make sure that I didn't do that. So I had to have a system to maintain progress. And then after we maintain progress, we have to talk about how we continually adapt to ensure lasting success. Because what I'm doing now, my body's going to get used to it after a while. And after my body gets used to it, I'm going to have to be ready to do something different to embrace a new change. Okay. And so hopefully by the end of this session, you'll not only have a clear roadmap for achieving whatever your goals are, but also you'll have a deeper appreciation for the power of change and how you master that change. And then you'll be able to drive your own personal and professional growth. Now, let's get started and let's learn how to master the art of embracing change. All right. If you're ready, go ahead and put in the comment section and just say, I'm ready. I am ready. All right. So let's talk then about the importance of change and why is change hard? If we need to change, why is it so hard to change? Making changes, whether big or small, is often easier than said or done. Why? Because one of the main reasons change is challenging is due to our ingrained habits and our need to be comfortable, even if we find ourselves in an environment of discomfort. Pastor, what do you mean? Have you ever seen someone who doesn't like their current life circumstance, and you try to talk to them about all the things they could do to change, maybe how they could get out of poverty, how they could get out of sickness, how they could get out of an abusive relationship, how they could get out of a dead-end job, but they just don't seem to want to change. And what we say is they don't want to change. The reality is not that they don't want to change. It's that as human beings, we have ingrained habits that keep us in a particular path. And unless those habits are interrupted, we won't get out of that lane, even if that lane is something that we inherently do not like. And even though we don't like it, we actually can become comfortable in what we don't like, more so than the idea of being comfortable in something that I don't know. You've probably heard the phrase before, it's the devil that I know. I'd rather be with the devil that I know than the devil I don't know. You've probably heard somebody say that before. What they're really saying is, I'd rather be miserable in what I know because at least I know how to manage it, rather than being the idea of being miserable in something that I don't know and that I can't handle, right? And so it's important that you understand and that you make sure that you know whenever you're wanting to change, there's going to be those forces working against you. Why? Because our brains are wired to resist change. Our brains are like computers. Whatever information goes in first is what our brain is want to be hardwired with. And it's because it requires so much effort to rewire whatever those first thoughts were. It's the reason that if someone was trying to teach you a new way to do math, even if you know how to get the right answer the old way, you are less likely to change to do it the new way because the way you learned it has been hardwired into your brain and you don't want to let it go because our brains are actually designed to resist change because our brain's job is to keep us safe, or so it thinks. Our brain thinks it's keeping us safe by doing what we know works and not doing anything new. Additionally, people struggle with change because of the fear of failure. They think, oh my gosh, if I do something new, I'm going to fail. People also fear change because they have a lack of motivation. They're not motivated to do something new. I say to people all the time, people don't really change until the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of changing. That is why people don't change. It's why a doctor can tell someone for years that they need to watch their high blood pressure. They need to watch their cholesterol. They need to watch, all of these other things that's going on in their body. And then they'll have a heart attack or a mini stroke or something. And the doctor's like, you got to get this out of your life. You got to do this. And then they make these radical changes. Why? Because the pain associated with staying the same became greater than the pain of actually changing. The other reason that people fight change or people fail at change is because they have limited support systems. You have to have a support system. When people are building a wall and they're bricking a wall, you've probably seen it before. They have what's called scaffolding up on that wall. Why? Because they're building and supporting as they go. And that's what you need in order to live a life full of change. Now, there are some myths out there. There are some myths out there about change and the process of change that I want us to debunk, because we need to debunk them so that when we encounter them, we know that they're not true, right? Number one, here's the first myth. People don't really want to change. That is a myth. That is a myth. And many times it becomes an easy excuse for us to put on people so that we don't have to walk with them through the process of change. You know, we try to help them out one or two times and they don't do what we think they should do. They don't do right. And what we do is we go, well, they don't want to change. We just say they don't want to change. But the reality is that most people do want to change, but they struggle with how to do it effectively. That's the truth. That is the truth. The myth is people don't want to change. If you find anybody who is homeless, they'll probably tell you, I don't want to be homeless. You find anyone in an abusive relationship, they'll say, I don't want to be in an abusive relationship. You find someone in poverty, they'll say, I don't want to be in poverty. You find someone who struggles with depression, they'll say, well, I don't want to struggle with depression. They don't want to, but the reason they stay in those situations is because they do not have what is necessary to structure them so that they can change. Because in reality, most people do want to change. What's myth number two? Myth number two is that change is simple if you just have the willpower to do so. People say, oh, they could change if they wanted to. We say they don't want to change, and then we say they could change if they wanted to. But here's the truth. The environment that people live in and exist plays a major role on if they can change or not. With the right strategies and the right environment, people can overcome various environmental barriers that would stop them from changing. Just like there's environmental barriers that will stop you from changing, there's the right environmental barriers or strategies that will keep you from relapsing. My wife and I, we say it like this. And people who go to FOC, y'all know we say this all the time. Your environment is always working on you. In fact, go ahead and type that in the comment section. If you're listening right now, you should type that in the comments so that your eye gate can see it, your ear gate will hear you, your tactileness will see you typing that out. My environment is always working on me. And that is so true. If you want to change, you got to create the right environment. You got to be in the right environment. The other thing is, which is a myth, number three was a myth, is that people can't change because of their environment. Well, that is partially true, but just because you find yourself in a bad environment doesn't mean you have to stay there, okay? You don't have to stay. You can change your environment because your environment is always working on you, okay? It's always working on you. It's always moving. It's always causing you to be more like it is. So if you find yourself in a bad environment, you gotta extract yourself from it and get inside of a different environment, because that old environment is going to make you be more like it over time than you changing it to be like you. And then the fourth myth. Here's the fourth myth for why people don't change. People think it's all gene related. Gene, gene related. My mama was like this. My daddy was like this. This thing run in our family. With this is who the Stricklands are. This is who the Clays are. This is who the Dennises are. This is who we are. This is how we are. No. While genes may exert some powerful influences over our lives, they do not determine our destiny. Genes do not determine our destiny. You can take two kids, raise them by the same mom and daddy in the exact same house with the same set of genes, and they can come out to be two very different people. Why? Because while genes do exert some powerful influences on our life and who we are, they do not determine our destiny. There's a lot of research about brain behavior. And that if you study that material out, you'll find out that your behavior actually impacts your biology as much as your biology impacts the expression of your genes. People say nature or nurture, but it's actually both. It is actually both. It is actually both. It's not just your genes. It's not just how you grew up. It's actually a combination of them both. And we need to make sure that we understand that. And then number five, the fifth myth, okay? The fifth myth is that I can't change because I tried it before and failed. That's a myth. It's not something we need to buy into. It's a lie. It's designed to keep us in the situation that we're in. All five of these myths come wrapped up in a lot of emotion. They come wrapped up in a lot of anger and apathy and fear and resignation. But the consequences of not trying again are detrimental to us. And the real possibility of success gets diminished every time we fall into the trap of one of these myths. Okay. So that is why people don't change. Okay. It's why people think they can't change, but people can change. Somebody type in the comment, change is possible. Change is possible. Change is possible. So if we're going to change, what do we got to do? Here's step number one. Step number one deals with our psyche. Okay, it's about preparation. So step number one is to prepare. This step number one, is all about self-assessment. It's about building motivation. We start by reflecting on why you want to make the change in the first place and how it will benefit you. You have to identify your strengths and the resources that you already have at your disposal. If you want to make a change, and if you're going to be successful in that change, you need to do a self-assessment. That is part of the preparation. A lot of people just jump into change, but you can't just jump into change. You have to actually prepare for the change. Okay? You have to prepare yourself mentally, emotionally, for the change, and sometimes physically for the change you want to make. Part of my makeup, because when I started to lose the weight in August, that was when it started to get cold. It was the end of fall. I knew winter was going to be coming. Those were typically the months that I struggled the most because it was too cold to go outside. It was too cold to walk. So what did I do? I knew that if I didn't have the right things to allow me to keep doing what I was doing, I was going to relapse. So what did I do? I bought me some winter workout clothes. I bought me some proper gloves. I bought a proper hat. And then I had to work on my mentality. And my mentality kept saying to myself, these miles aren't going to walk themselves. These miles aren't going to walk themselves. So no matter how cold it is, I don't care if it's 32 degrees, I'm going to go and I'm going to commit to the miles that I committed to. But I had to prepare myself for that before it was time to actually do it. In part of doing that, what was I doing? I was building my motivation. But I was building my motivation, and I was building it around my big why, or what we call our BHAG, our big, hairy, audacious goal. My big, hairy, audacious goal was to be 180 pounds by March 15th of 2024. That was my BHAG. Then I had to prepare myself for everything that I could even think of that I was going to have to go through in order to reach that goal. I knew there was going to be soreness. I knew there were going to be times I didn't want to do it. I knew there was going to be times I was going to be hungry because I was so used to eating things that just filled me up every time I wanted to have that feeling of being full. I knew I was going to have to go through and change those things. I knew I was going to have to overcome those cravings of the Dr. Pepper and the sugar and everything else that I was going to be giving up. But I had to prepare. Building motivation is key in step one. What is your motivation for changing? What is your motivation? Part of my motivation for changing too was that I was 52 years old and I wanted to live to be 100. And I knew I couldn't keep eating like I was the last 50 years if I expected to live an additional 50, right? So I had to have a big why. When you have a big why, you set clear and compelling reasons for why the change that you are embracing is important to you. How do you do that? You have to visualize the positive outcomes. I saw myself on spring break being thin. I laugh and I tell this story because the spring break before, I was not thin. We take a group trip every year for the last few years with the whole group of us. And we had went to this amusement park 2 years ago, and we were all at the amusement park. We was all having fun and things were going great. And they had this amazing slide that I wanted to go down. and praise God, I went up to the slide with Pastor Ralph and with his son Aiden, and we were having a good time, and we went down the first slide and it was fun, and we said, oh, let's go do the bigger one. And so we got up there to go do the bigger one. And it was interesting because when you got up there, they had a scale, and I had never been to a water slide that had a scale before. And so it kind of threw me off. And it was a tandem. You could go down tandem or you could go down single. And Ralph was going down with his son. And I said, well, I'll go down by myself. And man, I took my big Ralph and I stood up on the platform and I was ready to go. And the lady said, I'm sorry. And I said, sorry, what, man? What do you mean? She said, you can't go down. I said, why not? She said, well, we have a maximum weight capacity of 250 pounds. And I was beside myself. I was like, wait, I have never been denied an amusement ride because of my height or my weight. And for her to tell me I couldn't go down that slide and I had to take that walk of shame, that's right, Chris. I was appalled. But really, I was appalled at the fact that I had let myself get that heavy. And I decided at that day, that was in March of 2022, I think it was, or it was 20, I think it was 22. And I was like, you know what? This ain't gonna happen to me again. It was either 22 or 23, I forget the year. But I was like, you know what? This ain't gonna happen to me again. Because at the time I thought we was gonna go back to that same place the next year. And I was like, when I go back there next year, I'm gonna go on that water slide and I'm gonna ride that water slide. Ain't nobody gonna tell me I'm too big. That was my big why. I don't know what your why is. Your why may be much more emotional, much more deeper, much more meaningful. Mine was simply, I ain't gonna be too big to go down a water slide. That was my big why. And so I had to prepare myself to do everything I needed to do in order for that to happen. Okay. So that's step number one. Step number one is to prepare. Somebody type the word prepare in the comment section. You got to prepare. You got to get yourself ready. Whatever goal it is you want to tackle, it ain't going to be easy. You just got to know that it's not going to be some little easy task. If it was easy, everybody would do it and everybody would have done it. So you got to get yourself ready. Then step number two, after you prepare, then you have to plan. Somebody type that in the comment section. Step number two is to plan. Once you've mentally prepared, it is time to plan. Planning is crucial because what planning does is it turns vague intentions into concrete steps. It's a lot of people who can dream big. The problem is that once they through dreaming, they don't do anything with the dream, right? They don't have an actionable plan. You have to begin, and I know this is a cliche saying, but you got to begin with the end in mind. What do you want the goal to be? You have to have a vision of that. You have to start off your plan with that goal and then use what I call backwards design so that you know if I got 6 months to lose 60 pounds, then that's going to be 10 pounds every month. And I have to know that I'm going to lose a little more weight when I first get started than in the end when my body plateaus. So what's going to be my plan? What's going to be my eating plan? What's going to be my plan before I hit my plateau that I'm going to change into a new plan? And I have to work myself backwards. It's difficult for many people to reach the destination because they don't even know where it is. They have a vague plan, a vague idea. And I wrote this down. Vague goals beget vague efforts. If you have a vague plan, if you have a vague dream, if you have vague goals, all it's going to produce is vague efforts. And all vague efforts are going to produce for you is frustration and humiliation because you're not going to reach your goal even though you have a desire to do so. So we have to start by setting realistic and specific goals. Break those things down into smaller parts. Break them into manageable tasks so that you can tackle them one at a time, day by day. Because if you don't, those vague, that big goal you have with those vague efforts aren't going to produce anything. So you have to use things that work for you, and different things work for people. Some people use planners. Some people use journals. Some people use apps. Some people use their computer. Some people do a things to do list. But whatever you do, you got to have a plan, and you have to schedule your task, and you have to set deadlines. I know people hate deadlines, but deadlines can be your friends. Deadlines are like guardrails. They keep you in line so you don't fall off the edge. Planning involves anticipating potential pitfalls and obstacles as well. I knew that there were going to be times when I decided to lose weight that there were going to be days that I probably didn't feel like running. I probably didn't feel like walking. Or maybe I got weak and somebody brought a piece of cake home and there was Thanksgiving involved or there was Christmas involved or my birthday was going to come up in between that time and I knew I was going to want a piece of cake. What was I planning for? I planned for those days. So several days before those days, I made sure I worked out even harder than the days I normally would have. Why? Because I had to have a plan. If you don't have a plan, then you have a plan to fail. And by having a solid plan in place, what you do is you set yourself up for success. So number one, I got to prepare. I got to get my mind right. Okay. Number two, I got to sit down and I need a plan. And a written plan is better than a plan in your mind. Okay. A written plan is better than a plan you just have in your mind. Something you have written down, something you thought through, something you can see, something that you can go by. Okay. And then we get to step number three. Step number three is about taking action. Somebody put in the comment section, it's time to take action. It is time that once I've prepared, because we're talking about how do I master change, I got to prepare. Okay. And once I've prepared, then I have to plan. And then once I've planned, now I need to take action. It is time to pull the trigger. Now that you have a plan, it is time to do the work. This step three, is all about putting your plan into motion and consistently, hear that word, consistently working towards your goal. Action is where the real work happens. It requires dedication, hard work, and perseverance. Yes, I said it, hard work. The only time you're ever going to find success before work is in the dictionary. It's the only time it shows up. The only time you're ever going to see success show up before work is in the dictionary. You have to put in the hard work if you want to see the success. Start with something small. Start with something achievable so that you can learn to build momentum, because momentum begets more momentum. Learn how to celebrate your progress along the way. Keep yourself motivated. Be your biggest cheerleader. Every day, what I would do when I was walking, when I first started walking, I think the first time I started walking in September, when I had to walk a mile, I was walking a mile at about 21 minutes. It was about 21 minutes a mile. And every time I walked, I just wanted to get a little faster, a little faster, a little faster, a little faster. And from September to March, I went from walking a 21-minute mile to being able to run about a 12-minute mile. And it just over time. And then even that, I said, I really want to get under that. And then I set a new goal for myself. And I said, by May 25th, it was actually the 26th because it rained on the 25th. But by May 26th, I said I wanted to be able to run a 10-minute mile. And I wanted to be able to do it consistently for 4 miles. And I was able to run a 38 minutes, 4 miles. Why? Because it was a goal I set for myself. But there were setbacks in between, but that was me taking action. That was me doing something. So whatever it is you want to do, whatever your dream is, whatever your desire, whatever your goal is, you have to set it for yourself. You got to prepare for it. You got to plan, and then you got to take action. Step 3 is all about the fury of action. It needs to be lots of action, because in this step, what you're aiming to do is you're aiming to act your way into a new way of living. You're looking to how do I stay forward? How do I lean into this wind of change? How do I embrace it so that this change becomes the new person that I am? Successful action requires 4 catalyzing strategies, okay? If you're going to be successful, if this plan is going to work for you, and I'm telling you what I know because I put them into place in my life, there are 4 catalyzing strategies, okay? The first one is the idea of rewarding. If you're going to take action and you're going to stick to that action, you got to find a way to reward yourself. And I don't mean, and here's what people would say. I had people ask me this when I was losing weight. They say, do you reward yourself with a cheat day? And I wasn't trying to be funny or petty, but here's what I would say. Why would the reward be something that's going to cause me to go backwards rather than going forward? So during those times, I didn't have cheat days. I had days that I had already planned that I might eat something that I normally wouldn't eat. But by planning those days out, I knew the days before it and the days after it, the type of work I was going to have to do so that I did not get derailed. So when I say reward, you have to reward yourself, but not with something that makes you go backwards. Okay? We don't reward ourselves with something that goes backwards. So one of the catalyzing strategies you have to use is this idea of rewarding. Okay? Since the beginning of time, rewards have been used to modify and strengthen behaviors. That is true whether you're talking about something external or internal. A reward consists of any consequence that increases the frequency or the strength of a targeted behavior. Okay. And so I have to make sure, I gave myself goals. I would say things like, hey, when you lose the next 10 pounds, instead of walking 6 miles, we'll walk 5. So my reward was 1 less mile that day. Okay. And that made me work hard to get there. And then when I got there, I felt so good about it. I didn't even need the reward, but the reward was there in order to get me to the place I needed to be. The second thing is something called countering. Countering, okay? Rewarding and countering. What is countering? Countering is doing the healthy opposite of the problem behavior. Whatever the problem behavior is that you want to change, countering is doing the healthy opposite. You must engage in the healthy opposite, not simply know what you should do. You actually have to do it. People say, well, I know I shouldn't be drinking Dr. Peppers. The whole time you sitting there with a doggone Dr. Pepper in your hand, okay? You have to counter. You have to, whatever it is that you know you should not be doing, you have to actually engage it and not do it, okay? And so you have to make sure that you are countering, doing the healthy opposite. And then the other thing you have to do is you have to learn how to have healthy relationships. Okay. Here's the third. We need to have healthy relationships. Why do I need to have healthy relationships? I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but I'll just remind you, it's because your environment is always working on you. Your environment is always working on you. And because your environment is always working on you, it's important that you have the healthy relationships that say to you, when everybody's together and you say, I remember when Kristen Valley is on here, I think Chris went 500 years without drinking a soda. No, it wasn't 500 years, but it felt like it. She went a long time without drinking a soda. And we would all be together. And this is when we were drinking sodas. We were in our big back eras. And Chris was doing great. She was not drinking sodas, right? And Chris would be like, I think just today I'm going to drink a Dr. Pepper. And I was like, nope. Even while I'm drinking, when I'm like, nope, Chris, you can't do it. You can't do it. You can't have a soda. Can't have a Coke today. Nope. Why? You've gone too far. You got too many days in. Don't give in. Don't cave in quick. All of us sitting at a table, 20 of us drinking our Cokes, but we wouldn't let Chris have one. Why? Because we were part of her support group that said Chris is not drinking sodas. And so she went years without drinking sodas. And we kept helping her not drink sodas. Why? Because we were part of her healthy relationship group. What do healthy relationships group? The fourth thing, they help with the environment. So we got to have rewarding, we got to have countering, we got to have healthy relationships in the right environment. If we learn to do that, she said 8 years with no soda, sitting around folk drinking them every weekend. Somebody ought to give Chris some praise for that. That was step number 3. All right, let's speed up a little bit. Step number 4. Okay. Once I've prepared, once I've planned, once I've taken action, now I have to persevere. Okay. I have to persevere. There are going to be times I want to give up, cave in, and quit. After you started taking action, the next step is to persevere or to maintain the changes that you have made. This phase is crucial because it's easy to revert back to old habits once the initial excitement and motivation fades. To maintain your progress, it's important to keep monitoring your actions and making adjustments as needed. Okay, making those adjustments as needed. I have to persevere. Right now, the other night, there were some chocolate chip cookies at the house, and I wanted one of them. I did. I wanted one of those chocolate chip cookies, and I wanted a big glass of milk with it. Now, I had already walked for the day, and I knew I wasn't going to walk or run anymore that day, but I wanted that cookie. So how did I persevere? I went in and I changed my workout plan for the next day. I said, I'm going to change my workout plan to be a little more strenuous, even though it was supposed to kind of be a more recovery day, because I'm going to eat this cookie and I'm going to drink this milk. Okay. but I couldn't eat the cookie and drink the milk and keep my workout plan the same. I had to modify it. Why? Because I had to persevere, because if I didn't persevere, then what was going to happen is I was going to continue to do that over and over and over and over again. I have to make sure I'm maintaining my progress. How do I do that? Well, number one, I have to expect that there are going to be some setbacks. Setbacks are a natural part of the change process. Okay, you can't deny yourself. Pastor Ralph and I, we talk all the time that we can't live such restrictive diets that it forces us to never enjoy some of the things we enjoy. That's just not gonna. It's gonna be a recipe for disaster. Okay, but I can maintain my progress. I can persevere through this thing by making good steps, by preparing myself, by planning, by taking action. And then by making sure that I persevere and make modifications where I need to maintain my desired goal attainment. And then number five kind of sounds like number four, but it's a little different. Step number five is I have to persist. I have to persist. And the way I persist is through reevaluation. I reevaluate what I'm doing. I adapt what I'm doing. When I first started losing weight, I was dropping weight so fast once I got into ketosis. Once my body got into ketosis, I was dropping sometimes 3-4 pounds a week. And it almost seems like it wasn't healthy, but it was just that I had gotten my body into ketosis and it became this fat burning machine, right? Well, now I have to reevaluate because after my body did that for a while, it burned up a lot of excess fat. And so my body stopped burning fat so fast. So then I had to reevaluate my eating plan. I had to reevaluate my workout plan, right? Because you have to understand that if you're going to persist, you're going to have to constantly be changing. I'm getting older. My body's getting used to more healthier foods. My metabolism is changing. All of these things are happening. And so I have to be willing to master the change. I have to persist because persistence is about maintaining change over time, which involves an ongoing evaluation and adaptation of what I'm doing. Change is not a one-time event. Somebody put that in the comment section. Change is not a one-time event. On the contrary, change is a continuous process, and you need to master both in order to permanently establish a new behavior. Here it is, July 2nd. We're getting ready to go into the end of 2024. If there are things that you know in your life you need to change, today is the day to make the decision that you can do it. Don't fall into those myths that you can't change because you tried it before. Don't fall into those myths that somehow you can't change because it's a part of your DNA and it's part of your makeup and that's just how your family are. You know, somebody said the other day, big back runs in our family. There is no such thing as a big back gene. The only reason you're big back is because you eat too much, you don't exercise, you don't move, or you have some medical condition. But you weren't born with a big back gene. Right? So don't fall into those myths. Don't fall into the myth, even when you see other people talking about change. Don't fall into the myth of they don't want to change. Okay? People do want to change. They don't have the structure. They need you to help them with the structure. They need you to say, you know what? You've been wanting to change and you went wanting to stop smoking and it's been hard. You need to go listen to Pastor Edwin's Ed Talk on managing change. Because when you learn to manage change, remember, it says it takes about 90 days to even get your mind really ready to do the change that's going to be long lasting because you have to prepare for it, right? And then after you prepare mentally, emotionally, and sometimes physically, then you have to plan. And then after you plan, you got to take action. You can't wait. There are people who do a lot of planning and sometimes they never go any further. I call that paralysis by analysis. They have this big plan, but they never move forward. They never move forward. But after you prepare, after you plan, then you need to take action. Okay? You need to take action. And then while you're taking that action, yes, there's going to be setbacks. Yes, there's going to be pitfalls. Yes, you're going to do some failure, but you need to persevere. You need to, if you fall down, you get up. If you fall off the wagon, you get back on the wagon. If you have a bad eating day, you don't have 10 in a row, you stop. You need to persevere. You don't give up. You don't cave in. You do not quit. You see it through. And then you need to persist. Once you hit your goal, and we see this all the time with people who reach their goal. Once they reach their goal, they don't change, they don't adapt, and so they end up relapsing and going back to the thing that caused them to need to go through all of this stuff in the first place. I made the declaration, I'm not going back to 267 pounds. I'm just not. I've done the balloon weight long enough. I'm not doing it again. I now understand what it takes. I now understand the structure. I now understand that I have to have a system for rewarding myself. I have to have a system for how I'm going to counter my bad behavior. I now have healthy relationships of people who encourage me. They say, Dad, you're looking good, or Strick, you're looking good, or Edwin, I'm so proud of you. And I surround myself with those kind of people, and I have the right kind of environment where people aren't saying, man, you look like you smoking crack. You look like you done lost all your weight. You look like you about to blow away. You need some rocks in your pocket. I don't hang around those kind of people, because those kind of people don't give me the right kind of information that makes me want to maintain the way I am right now. And so whatever your goal is, whatever your outcome is, whatever your destiny is, you have to follow those same steps, okay? Because you have to have a way to maintain that new behavior. And that's what persistence is all about. It's about maintaining that new behavior. It's about boosting your own self-efficacy. And it's also about understanding something called the spiral of change. And I'm going to end with this. Understanding the spiral of change. Why is this last part important? Because as we've learned, people have the ability to relapse. Relapse actually is the rule rather than the exception. But we want to change that. We want to flip that. We want to make it so that relapsing is not the norm, that staying consistent is the norm in our life. Well, how do we do that? Well, we do it by understanding this thing called the spiral of change. The spiral of change demonstrates that people do not revolve endlessly in circles, okay? We don't have to be big, be small. Be big, be small. Be sick, be well. Be sick, be well. Be broke, be wealthy. Be broke, be wealthy. We do not have to live our lives in this spiral of change. The route to the behavior that we want is actually more linear than spiral. What do I mean? I mean that if I see the goal, I have the opportunity to get to that goal in a straight direction rather than having to go in this spiral, elliptical direction full of failure and defeat, full of joys and highs. I can go straight by having a plan, because here's what happens. The more times you fail and quit, the more susceptible you are to never starting again. That's the reason when you take little kids and they riding a bike and they fall off a bike, what's the first thing we tell them? Get up and try it again. We clap for them. Think about that. We clap for them when they fall. We say, oh, that's okay. You're all right. Get up. Let's try it again. You did so good. Come on. Let's do it again. Why? Because we want them to keep going and keep going and keep going, because if not, then they'll eventually be so afraid they'll never learn how to ride a bike. It happens with people with swimming. You know, back in the old days, and I do not advocate this, but back in the old days, they taught us to swim by picking us up and throwing us in the water. And if you made it back to the side without having somebody to jump in there and get you, then you was like, oh, I can swim. That is traumatizing. Do not do that. But that's what people did. Why? Because they were trying to demonstrate to us that you can do it. And so we have to learn to adapt and to change. So as I end this Ed Talk today, let me recap the 5 structures that you need, in order to master change. Number 1, it has to do with your psyche, okay? You got to prepare. Got to get ready for the change. Number 2, it has to do with preparation. You need a plan of action. Not only do you need to prepare mentally, emotionally, and physically, but you need a plan of action. Number 3, you have to take action. You have to perspire. You got to do it. You got to work. You got to go. You got to get it. You can't just talk about, as we say all the time, you can't just talk about it. You got to be about it. And then number 4, you have to persevere. You're going to have to go through something. You can't be soft. You can't be sensitive. You can't be a baby. You got to go through something. It's going to be some hard times, but you can make it. You've been built, designed, and engineered to overcome success and things like this, all right? And then lastly, you got to persist. What does it mean to persist? It means that I put things in place to help me maintain. And while I put things in my place to help me maintain, then once I've achieved my goal, I can keep my goal. Okay? So that's what you got to do. You got to learn how to master change. Listen, I appreciate you guys for sticking with me today. Again, I'll be back in September after Labor Day. Ed Talk is going to take a couple weeks off. I have a packed July, a packed August, trying to get 2 girls to school in different parts of the country. I got a trip I need to take. I got a cruise I'm going to go on. And I've got some people I need to see and some things I need to do for the ministry. And so I am going to be doing that. But that doesn't mean you don't have to hear Ed Talk. You can go and you can listen to any of the episodes that you have missed by simply going to any of the locations where Ed Talk resides. That is YouTube, that is Facebook, or your podcast of choice. All right. Or listen, God bless you guys. I love you. Hope you have a terrific summer. I'll see you if you come to Fellowship of Champions, because we got a huddle coming up. We got a fire experience coming up. We have the August huddle coming up. So I'll get a chance to see you before Ed Talk if you hang out with us over at Fellowship of Champions, or if you come to Kristen Valley Worships, or if you come to Fresh Bible Study, or if you come to prayer on Wednesdays or Fridays. All right. All right. Love you guys. Take care. You all have a blessed day.